All right, do you know what time it is?
It's time to do our Kegels.
It is, and this is the most, in some ways, my favorite part of the show. Because who doesn't want a strong pelvic floor, Twila?
I think I want one, so I'm good.
Exactly. So this is the time of the show when we do our Kegel exercises. It's so easy. It's so simple and can be so effective and life-changing.
That's right.
And so we are going to go over the customized GynoCast world-renowned regimen.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
3
times a day.
6
days a week.
9
seconds per Kegel exercise.
and 12.
Kegels in a row to make a rep. It's so simple. All you have to do is do 12 in a row, 3 times a day, 6 days a week, and hold them for 9 seconds. You will have a pelvic floor like a chain link fence. You will be able to pull a trailer with it. You will be the envy of your neighbors.
I think you will be, that's for sure.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening to the GynoCast. My name is Dr. Eric Heegaard. I'm a board-certified obstetrician gynecologist, and I'm here with my buddy, my boss, my wing woman.
How was
that? A hard time with that.
Where were you going?
I don't know. My co-wing woman, Twila Dang.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good.
It's so nice to be here with you. It always is.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
You know,
okay, so
so what are we talking about? We're going to talk about sex.
Yeah, I think we've been on a run of talking about sex lately, which is fine with me because I think that's great. And if you don't know what I'm referring to, go check out the show page at matriarchdm.com. We've had a couple of really great recent episodes, particularly about sex and aging and things, and some great information, like a really wonderful information we've been able to share. So we kind of want to just take that another step further. So as always, I like to find a list.
Yeah, well, the thing is that you always want to do things right?
Yeah.
And when you start to ride a bike, you don't want to run into a tree, right?
But you usually do.
And you do, yeah. And if you're going to cut a watermelon for the first time, you don't want to cut your thumb off, right? So there are things.
How are you cutting watermelons that you almost cut your thumb off?
Well, you haven't seen my watermelons.
Apparently.
They are works of art.
Oh, okay.
I can make one look like a Picasso.
Okay.
Twila.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll show it to you sometime.
Okay.
But the thing is that you can make mistakes doing anything, right? And so you don't want to make. Everybody makes. When you're talking about the physical world, our sexual interactions, you can do it. You can be help me out. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just saying, I don't know, but you can do it right, or you can make grave mistakes. Grave mistakes. And so today, I think we're talking about mistakes.
Yes. So we're essentially talking about the 10 sex mistakes that people make in their 30s.
Like, don't put lube on the floor.
Don't
in front of the bathroom.
Don't start. That's not a mistake. That's a practical joke. Don't do that.
Well,
it's not
it is
a good idea.
unless you're 85 with osteoporosis.
Well, like I said, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, it's not a good idea. Okay.
But as always, I like to find a list. So I found this one at Huffington Post, and we'll put it in the syllabus. And as always, because I enjoy these types of things. But I'm going to sort of tweak this just a little bit, because everything we do here, it tends to be focused on, and as I enjoy, is focused on women. So I will probably tweak
we're not going to talk about penis fractures.
Nope.
Is that on there?
No, I don't
See,
think
these are kind of fun because Twila knows what the list is. I don't know. So this,
right?
And we did another episode. I love doing this to Twila.
Yeah, he does.
Which I just throw stuff out to her.
But mind you,
She's
here's
not
the
prepared.
difference. I find lists that allow for you to shine in your area of expertise. And you find lists that you like to throw out there to stump me and make me look like I'm not as intelligent as I really am.
That is not true. I always qualify it. It makes us both look stupid.
No, I'm just totally messing with him. I enjoy messing with him. He knows I don't like surprises, and when I play along, it's always interesting.
I know, I love it.
Okay, so this list is really the 10 sex mistakes that I'm going to say women make in their 30s.
Okay.
Because these are not just sort of physical acts. These are some of these are like philosophical. And we'll talk about it from, like I said, my position as a layperson, your position as an expert. So
can I just interject one thing before we get started? So let's just say that the one mistake, and from a gynecologic, from a health standpoint, wear a condom. Boom. If you don't wear a condom, you're making a mistake.
Why do I have to wear a condom? I'm married.
I'm not talking about, okay, well, if you're not in a committed monogamous relationship, wear a condom.
Fair point.
Okay.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Condom.
Protect yourself.
And if a guy doesn't want to wear a condom, whatever.
That's why Amazon has a vibrator section.
Yeah.
He can go.
But I will tell you this, and we've talked about this before. If you say to your potential partner, either you wear up a condom or we don't have sex, he'll wear a condom.
Well, I think that's fair.
Just don't. Yeah.
Well, listen, and can I add a caveat to that?
No.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
In terms of advocacy, I think that's a really powerful thing to make sure we state again and again that you should be advocating for your sexual health that way.
Yes.
And guess what? It doesn't have to be the guy's job to provide that. Guess what, girls? You can go buy condoms. You can go buy them and keep them in your house. You can go buy them and have them in your purse. If that is the activity that you're engaged in or you're going to be engaged in, there is no reason that you have to rely on that individual to provide what is necessary. You can, if they say, "Oh, I don't have one," you go, "Oh, hold on, I have one in my purse." You can actually advocate for yourself and protect yourself very specifically. Yep. So that's just sort of an addendum to the idea that they should be wearing a condom. If you're having heterosexual sex, they should be wearing a condom.
Or homosexual sex.
Well, but we're not talking about guys. Just saying, not talking about guys today. Sorry.
Okay, all right.
See?
Yeah, all right.
Fair point. But we're not talking about guys today.
All right. Okay.
Remember, matriarch digital media.
Okay, got it.
So,
But I will. For those of you who wonder, I am going to talk about penis fractures at the end of this.
No, you're not.
Come on, you can't tell me that's not interesting, and that's a mistake.
Okay, I'm not saying it's not interesting. I'm just saying it's not interesting to me in this context. We can do a show about weird things
penis
that happen to guys later, but this ain't the move. No,
all right. Well, you didn't argue when we were talking about goat yoga.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
You know I did. And we'll put that in the notes if you don't know what we're talking about. So anyway, we're talking about the 10 sex mistakes that women make in their 30s. Number 1, settling for lazy sex. So do you know what that means?
Yeah, it's the guy who's like, it's the one-handed massage. Like you know what I'm saying is, you're like, this is the classic. You're laying in bed and your partner will say, "I just had a hard day, and I really would love a massage." And the guy's laying there, and he's like, "Well, why don't you turn to your side, and I'll rub your back." And he doesn't even move; he just kind of, does the one-handed thing.
Well, he makes a circle in the middle of your back, and then uses the same hand to push you back over. Like, okay, I'm done. More time.
Was that good for you?
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's okay.
So the lazy lover.
Right.
Because okay, I'm gonna go with that.
No, it's absolutely right. It's the idea of sort of falling into a very specific routine where you sort of take the same like 4 or 5 actions, and there's it's sort of the same every time.
Are you talking about throwing in the Congress of the Cow every once in a while? Is that what you're saying, Twila?
Oh
my Lord! I can't believe
Congress of the Cow.
I can't believe you said that on the podcast.
Grief. No, well,
Tantric?
Here's the thing.
Lord.
I'm not saying to do that because we're of an age and you can get hurt. Stretch, girls. But essentially, lazy sex lacks creativity and exploration. And as you're aging with a partner, or as you're engaging in a sexual relationship, you want there to be creativity. You want there to be the opportunity and sort of an eagerness to want to try different things and do different things.
Yeah.
And lazy sex is the antithesis of that. It becomes automatic and it becomes disconnected. It's not passionate. It's just rote or it's routine. And you don't want your sex life to become rote and routine.
It's the antithesis and it's antipathy.
Very well done.
You like that?
Yes.
Just dawned on me.
Well stated.
I've been playing words with friends.
I knew I was waiting for that. I was waiting for you to be like, I was playing Scrabble. I was waiting for that. Okay.
Have you ever played Words with Friends?
Yeah.
Oh my God! I can't get to sleep at night. And I was playing last night.
Okay.
And this
you
woman,
need to stop
she just was
those.
kicking my butt. And
okay, you need to stop
just
playing games
kicking
at night
my
to go to sleep.
Butt. Like I was trying to go to sleep, Twila, and she just kept.
Then you're supposed to do an activity that is
soothing for the mind.
But that's not soothing for the mind. That is stimulating.
I know,
but
I just couldn't stop it because she just kept, and it was like
you
she wouldn't give me.
App.
She just what?
Have you heard of the guy? Okay, there's a guy that has a sleep podcast. Sidebar, guys. He has a sleep podcast, and really, he's an insomniac, and but he has this really soothing voice, and he basically just like reads.
Just talks.
But he's got like the ultra NPR voice.
Yeah.
So it's like, thank you for listening, and he just keeps reading, and you essentially get bored to death and fall asleep. It's great.
Yeah,
it's great. I will find it for
reading
you.
the business news.
I will. He reads like literature and things like that. I will totally find it for you.
Pork bellies are up by 3%, and corn futures are. All right, so Twila, I got to bring you back in. You're going all over the place here.
Yeah,
Let's get
I'm
back
going
to
all over the place.
So
anyway,
lazy.
So
what was
number
it?
1 was settling for lazy sex. Don't do that. You don't have to do that. Okay, and number 2. Freaking out when you don't feel desire. Now, I think in particular, this is something that happens to women quite a bit, where we reach a certain age, or we have a certain stress level, or we have a lot going on in our lives, and we lose we don't just not have sex, we lose our desire to have sex.
Right.
Don't freak out over that. That actually is fairly common.
It is. This is, and we've done shows on this in the past. We got to do another one about libido.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just, it's one of these things that people get, and I talk about this with my patients all the time, because, and for the most part, it is normal, depending on how you define libido. Remember that show we did with the sex therapist years ago, where, if you broaden the definition of libido, but the idea of, when your partner walks in the door and you just want to go and tackle him or her, and have your way with him or her, that changes over long-term relationships and with age, and it's normal.
It's absolutely normal. And the thing is, you don't have to freak out about it, and you actually get to decide what you want to do about it. Some women are perfectly happy having sort of a decreased sense of desire. They gain fulfillment and things like from other sources or other things. Their relationship with their spouse or their partner is different, and they have a mutual understanding of what is good for them. Like, they might not be having sex every day, but they're okay with having sex like once a week or once a month. Some couples over time just decide that aspect of their relationship is not important to them, and that's their own decision. Now, if you are having
or it's important, but in the pattern that is right for them. If it's not a problem, it's not a problem.
Right. But now if it becomes a problem, that's usually when you start having this sort of freak out.
Yeah.
And it usually is because it becomes either a problem for you or it becomes a problem most likely for your partner.
Yeah.
In that case, then yes, you should address it. You should address it in the proper way. You shouldn't just decide, I'm just going to force my way through it, because then you wind up in the number 1 category of lazy sex and just engaging because you have to do it. And that makes it unenjoyable for everybody involved. If you have an issue and you're concerned about it, or someone that cares about you is concerned about it, that is the time, is the opportunity to go see your gynecologist. Go talk to a professional about, is there anything you can do about this? And there are options for you, so you should definitely go try to figure that out.
That's right.
Okay, so number 3 on our list, not paying attention to your sex life once you have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a really important one.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I can speak from personal experience because I've had 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And no, nobody tells you what your body is going to go through. Nobody tells you about sort of what feels like the train wreck that is pregnancy and childbirth to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody tells you that the recovery period is a lot longer and more difficult than you anticipate. Yeah. You just kind of think, oh, it's over now, I'm going to bounce back. And then then it's 3 months later and you still have, this giant pooch, or you're still uncomfortable down there, or you're still, and now you have, milk that you didn't know that was, that comes in weird, iterations essentially. Mm-hmm. And then you have this human that now depends on you, and it upends you.
Yep.
But it's really, really, really important that even in the midst of all of that, that you figure out how to make sure that you are staying connected to your partner. Like, it's really, really important. And here's the thing that nobody tells you. You will be at the moment, or in the surrounding moments of pregnancy, birth, and then after your infant comes home with you. This will be when your spouse feels the absolute most connected to you in a very specific way, because they basically just watched you bring another human. Like, your spouse for the first time sees you as superhuman. Mm-hmm. And that immediately makes them want to be like
in your orbit.
Yeah, like not just in your orbit. They want to get as close to being like a part of you as possible.
They want to worship at the feet of the feminine divine.
Yeah, because it's remarkable.
It is remarkable. It is.
And you don't think
agree.
about that. You genuinely don't take into account.
I've never thought about it from the perspective you said. That's really interesting. It really is, and it's an awesome thing to be. close to.
Yeah, because you're thinking, especially as a pregnant woman or as a woman who's given birth, you're on one side thinking, I'm a wreck. This is a disaster. Like, did you see that stuff that came out of me? Did you oh my gosh, and then you do have this moment of wonder where you're like, I can't believe I did that. But you don't always connect it to the fact that this is something you did as an individual. You almost think of it as something that happened to you, not something that you did. So when
it's really, Twila, you are just bringing up some really thoughtful things today.
Well, honestly, this was something that I had. It took me a long time to circle back and recognize that. I remember having a conversation with my husband once after we had our first two, and we were finding out about our third. And our third was a shell shock. We weren't prepared to have a third. And
how did this happen?
Yeah, it really was like, what?
I don't remember anything.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I went to my doctor's checkup, and they asked, when did you have your last period? And I went, yeah, about that. And they were like...
And I remember we passed each other in the hallway and maybe bumped into each other, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, it was very much like we had actually made a pretty conscious decision that we were done having children.
You're not going to have your third one listen to this podcast, are you?
Oh, no, we told her the story. She knows.
Right.
And it was very much a, what are you talking about? We had already made life decisions and just hadn't taken any action to support that life decision. But I remember my husband saying really candidly to me once, I feel like I just got you back, and I'm going to lose touch with you again. And it was in that moment that I was like, I thought I had been doing a good job of making sure that wasn't happening, but you can't always control for that, but you can actually make more of an effort to control for that. So like I said, I happen to be a person, I've been very candid about being a woman with a higher libido than maybe average women that I know. And even I was like, you come talk to me in a couple months. We'll circle back around the island later. I'm tired right now. So I can only imagine if a woman who has a more average or traditional or lower sex drive goes through this process and thinks nothing of going 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 months or longer without having sex. Yeah. What does that do to your connection to your partner?
Well, and once you, precisely, because once it falls away from your life, it's just easy to not. It's hard to bring it back.
Yeah.
And so kind of circling back a little bit to the second comment you made, or the second concern, which is loss of libido. Mm-hmm. One of the things that one of the first things that sex therapists will tell you is to schedule it. Put it on the calendar. Just so and nobody likes that.
Everybody pushes back on it, but it's actually a really smart thing to do.
Because you got to get it back into your life.
Yeah, it has to actually be an activity. Because it's one of those activities where, you think, oh, it's like we put this on the calendar for Thursday. This is ridiculous. I don't have time for this. And then even in the engagement of the activity, you're like, I can't believe we scheduled this. I should be asleep right now. But at some point, your brain at some point, your body engages, and then your brain re-engages.
Yeah,
and if it doesn't do anything else except make you close to one another again, if it doesn't do anything but reignite a camaraderie that may be missing right now, it's super helpful and informative. I've told people this story before. It's not personal in terms of private knowledge, but when we had two little kids back to back, and they were about not even 18 months apart. So the only time we could actually have and be available to each other that way was in the dead of night. It'd be okay, 2 to 4 a.m. recon mission, somewhere in that 2 to 4 a.m. hour.
In the still of the night.
Yeah, really, truly, be somewhere in the 2 to 4 a.m. hour, one of us is going to wake up and remember we haven't, and you're just that's going to be your wake up call. Don't argue. That's your wake up call. So and it went both ways. It was if you wake me up, I will grumble for 5 minutes, but then I'm in. If I wake you up, you can grumble for 5 minutes, but then you're in. That's how this works. Because otherwise, we are never going to do this.
Yeah.
Because we had little kids that were really dependent on us all day long. Right. And I'm really grateful that we did that. I'm really grateful that we carved out that funny time, and that it was impossible, and that there were all kinds of weird maladies that would happen in the 2 to 4 a.m. hour, realizing that, we bought lubricant, and I forgot to take it out of the Target bag. It's in the kitchen, and you'd stub your toe going to the kitchen at 2 a.m. so that you can make sure this happens. Or the fact that the bathroom is right next to one of my kids' bedrooms with a crib. So you could do this from 2. You could engage at 2 to 4 a.m. But then somebody has to go to the bathroom, and if you wake somebody up, so then it became this hilarious I'm not going to the bathroom. No, really, you have to go to the bathroom. No, I'm not going to the. I'll just sit here. I'll just lay on my side. I don't care. Like you just like you would there were all of these sort of ridiculously hilarious things that would happen to us.
Yeah.
That even later when we would talk about it, it'd be like, can you believe we were that stupid? But it made us laugh. And if it didn't do anything else, the sex might not have always been a successful mission. But the fact that we were like partners in crime was always a successful mission.
And the sort of it's like your bandits together.
Yeah, absolutely. It was
a little naughty.
We were doing something. We were doing something we shouldn't be doing. Right. It was just, and that helped create, a camaraderie. And then the next day when we were back to sort of our everyday, like now we're mom and dad. There was this sort of friendliness. There was this, there's playfulness that we were able to re-engage with. And the playfulness didn't always lead to sex, but it also kept us from becoming sort of strangers.
That's right. And I would just like to add that sex after delivery varies. And sometimes there can be pain as people are healing from lacerations or tears or episiotomies or C-sections or whatever. But so when a woman and her partner decide to become sexually active again can vary from 2 weeks to months. But the most important thing is that a woman heals, and that she not have pain. And
you know what? Can I just interject as a layperson? If you're having any kind of discomfort, any kind of pain, any kind of you can't explain it, don't just sit silently and go, I don't know what's happening. Actually, I know it's really hard to talk to your doctor. I know it is. But you have to tell your doctor if you're in pain. You have to tell your doctor if it feels uncomfortable. You have to tell your doctor if it just feels weird and different and you don't understand why. Yep. Because they may actually have an answer, or they can help you troubleshoot an answer, so that you're not completely taking something off the table that's important to you, that's important to your partner, or important to your relationship, just because you don't have an answer. Women are notorious for trying to be stoic and just like play through pain, or just like ignore it, or say I'm too busy, or it'll go away. And instead of like going and seeking out a solution that could really create like a benefit to their lives.
That's right. And right after delivery, especially when a woman is breastfeeding, but even if she's not for a while, there's a very low estrogen state. And the vagina, and we've talked about this, the vagina, the bladder are very estrogen sensitive. And so the vagina will be thinner and more sensitive than when it's in its estrogenized state. And so it sometimes, rarely, we have to give supplemental estrogen. Mostly it's just a matter of time in terms of just letting your body kind of accommodate or adapt. But there are things that make it so sex can be more uncomfortable. That's why we recommend lubrication and waiting for things to heal.
Right.
But I just want to add on to what you said, which is if it is uncomfortable, please get in and see your doctor so you're not suffering unnecessarily.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't help anything.
Oh no, I agree. Now we're halfway through, or almost halfway through our list of 10 sex mistakes women
and I can tell you this:
in their 30s. What?
If a man fractured his penis, he wouldn't wait around.
Stop talking about that.
All right. Equal opportunity here.
That's because you guys can't barely even take a cramp alone poking penis.
Well,
just saying. Okay, so
that's true.
Number 4 on our list is taking sex too seriously. I actually know a lot of people that do this, but they take it too seriously in a very I'm trying to find a polite way of saying this.
Do they take it like it's like a scientific? It's like a like a process of working out an equation. Like, Phyllis, tonight we're going to at 7 p.m. I'm going to put on my Superman cape and we're going to engage in Congress of the Cow.
No, it's not saying Congress of the Cow. I think sometimes women, when they take sex too seriously, they put all of the weird notions on top of it, so they romanticize it too much, or they like the idea of like when you're talking to somebody and they're like, when you say, "Oh, did you have sex?" and you're like, "No, we made love." It's that idea of you're taking it so seriously that it has all these lofty expectations.
Yeah, now I'm having
bodice ripping.
Yeah, bodice ripping. Well, when I was exactly Twila, my goodness.
Right.
I was just thinking when you brought that up, I'm thinking of a guy on a horse, without his shirt.
And listen, and mind you, a lot of because we're not a culture that talks about sex in a healthy or productive way all of the time, and to not necessarily normalize
we can't even talk about it in a reproductive way.
No, not really. So a lot of women learn and have their understanding of sex shaped by things that they see in pop culture. Boys look at porn initially to get their understanding of what they consider love and relationship or sex and relationship. Women look at things like romantic comedies for things like sex and relationship, or or romances or dramas, or they read that kind of literature. And that's not a blanket statement. Don't email me. I know people do different things. But as a whole, for an understanding, a lot of women approach sex thinking that it's supposed to be this sort of magical, romanticized notion of it being like sort of sweeping and epic like they see in the movies. And then when real sex is messy and weird and complicated and sweaty and about weird positions and weird noises, they freak out because that's not sexy, that's not romantic. But whose definition are you using?
Yeah.
And especially if you didn't have experience with it up until a certain point, and then your experiences are typical of what normal sex is like, then you're automatically going to sort of feel disillusioned, disappointed, and then it makes any sexual encounter that happens after that more difficult because you're still putting on these weird, lofty expectations that are not realistic, and you're framing the experience that you had as being a negative one when really it was just a normal one. And maybe if you had relaxed and not taken it seriously and discovered that it's okay to laugh in bed, that it's supposed to be a little bit weird and messy and dirty, that it's supposed to be like sweaty, that your body's gonna make weird noises, that's so you don't have to be embarrassed, then you could sort of let go of some of that expectation and really enjoy your sex.
Well, a lot of sex therapists will say, don't try to compare your life to what you read in the magazines or see on film. And it's
absolutely.
it's not real.
And mind you, I happen to be a huge advocate for the romance industry. We actually are doing a podcast now about sort of the way the romance industry plays out across pop culture. Which is strange that you would think I'm not this big advocate for it. But I actually think there are healthy ways to engage in it, and there are lots of really great things to be learned from it, especially when we don't talk about sex as a culture. Mm-hmm. It's important for you to find healthy ways to engage with your desire and what turns you on, so that you know how to share that with a partner. But I also think it's really, really important to understand that sex is more complex than what you see in the movies. It's absolutely more complex than what you see in pornography, and that somewhere in the middle is everyday life with everyday people who can have fun, romantic, engaging, enjoyable sex. You just have to figure out, a really important part of this is figuring out where you fall on the spectrum and understanding that the extremes of the spectrum are not the norm.
Yep.
So you don't expect that. So
excellent points.
Thank you. So number 5 on this list of the 10 sex mistakes women to make in their 30s, not focusing on the clitoris. Take it away, gynecologist.
Well, that's interesting. So, not focusing on the clitoris, as they say in England, the clitoris.
They don't say it. Yeah, they don't do that.
Today, let's talk about the clitoris.
Now you sound Irish. What are you doing?
So, that's interesting because, most women have orgasms that are clitorally based.
Right, but most women don't know that.
And some women have orgasms that also include the cervix, and many people, of course, have it involves both. But for the most part, stimulating the clitoris is important for most women in terms of achieving orgasm, and certain sexual positions do not do that.
Right.
And so,
can we argue that certain traditional sex positions don't do that?
Okay, well,
like
why don't you run with that? Missionary can.
It
definitely
can.
But sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
Definitely, if the man from behind position, if you want to use that, definitely does not have much clitoral stimulation. You can get G-spot stimulation there.
Right.
But in that position, either the woman has to stimulate her own clitoris or her partner can.
Right. It requires an assistant.
Right.
Okay.
Well, if you want to talk about your own hand as an assistant.
Well, it is an assist if you're helping yourself.
What do I do with my hands? What do I do? I'm thinking of Will Ferrell. Remember that? What do I do with my hands? I don't know. Well, people need to. So that's an interesting point. I guess I hadn't thought about that. But women and their partners,
yes,
need to focus on the clitoris.
Well, I remember you told many moons ago when we used to do the radio show. You told us that like the clitoris, like we assume that the clitoris is just that small part.
Yeah,
it's actually not.
It's actually it's quite a bit. It's like an iceberg, Twila.
Yeah. Well, you explained it. You explained it really well.
You can't just hit the iceberg. You got you got to go deep.
But you explained that the muscle, like the tissue, is really similar to like penile tissue.
It is actually, and it's just and the clitoris extends. I can't remember exactly, but it's.
We'll look it up.
It's like 5 centimeters, and then it actually separates and runs along the pubic bone, and so that a lot of people think that the G spot is really just an extension of clitoral tissue back but yeah, so the clitoris is actually much larger than you think,
right?
Just like the iceberg. That's
and I think
what you see on top does not reflect what's going on.
But you know what I think? Why this is? I think this is important that the idea that women don't focus on the clitoris and that sex partners don't. I think it falls squarely under what I was saying before about how women take sex too seriously. We all assume that we would achieve orgasm the way we see in the movies, which is some guy writhing on top of you and your head thrown back in ecstasy and everybody's hands are above the fold, nobody seems to be touching anything below the waist, and then everybody's hot and sweaty and satisfied and exactly the same, and they orgasm at the exact same time, which doesn't really always happen.
Yeah, right.
And so if you think that that's actually not a part of what should happen, or if you think I shouldn't have to touch myself to get there, or that he shouldn't have to touch me in addition to get there, then you're gonna be like really disappointed because you just won't get there necessarily without help.
Well, and I can't exactly remember the percentage, but there's a really good percentage of women who will not achieve orgasm with just intercourse.
Yeah.
And they need to either have, their partner doing oral sex or stimulating manually, or they're using a vibrator and, that sort of thing. And so you got to, I think that many women sort of feel like they're weird if they don't achieve an orgasm with intercourse.
Right, and that's the thing. Many women think that they're weird for not doing it because we've been conditioned to think that that's not a part of the equation. That you're. Look, what do you mean? Why couldn't you just have an orgasm because with sex? And it's like, but that's not like. It's even the idea that our definition of sex is sometimes too narrow to understand what that fully means, and the fact that women have to be able to give themselves permission to enjoy sex and seek pleasure from sex. Instead of just like I think, where did we read that? It was a stat that said like the clitoris is the only like body part that is solely for pleasure. Yeah. Right.
There's no other purpose.
So imagine being taught that at an early enough age to understand that that's exactly what it's for. So then by the time you engage in a sexual relationship or you're in, a regular sexual relationship, that you understand that not only am I not supposed to ignore this, but it's only for my pleasure. It's only for my enjoyment. So why am I not doing it? Why am I not making sure that everybody's, aware of the situation? Well,
and we've talked about this before, and I love your perspective on this because you talked about the importance as for younger people, the importance of a woman, well, and men too, but women getting to know what feels good for them, getting to know their own body.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if they don't know what feels good for them, they can't communicate that with a partner.
Right.
And I just think that is so important. I think if we were to train or teach our daughters or our relatives and women who are growing up to get to know their own body, many of these things would work themselves out because as they get older and they get in relationships, if they know their body, they know what feels good, they can communicate with their partner and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Support for the GynoCast is provided by OBGYN West. OBGYN West provides the highest quality care from compassionate providers, including women's health issues from general sexual health to pregnancy care, childbirth, menopause, and beyond. Whether it's your teen's first annual exam, a new baby's on the way, or you're facing the special challenges of middle age, OBGYN West provides a wide array of services. Their doctors and PAs are trained in virtually every type of OBGYN service and procedure. OBGYN West provides exceptional care for women.
So number 6 on this list of 10 sex mistakes women make in their 30s, having an affair instead of renegotiating what monogamy means to you. Now, I think that's really interesting. It basically says that many folks in their 30s and beyond find themselves in relationships where sex is seriously no longer working, but the relationship is otherwise strong. Yeah. And often they've tried to work on the sex life within the confines of monogamy, but it still doesn't work. And then they find themselves facing the choice, either giving up the entire relationship, going their separate ways, or give up on sex. And, of course, some folks just opt for infidelity because there's too many aspects of the primary relationship they don't want to lose, but they also don't want to give up sex long term.
Yeah.
Now, I'm finding this to be an interesting concept because I think you and I are both in the age range where we see couples that are making these decisions. I know I've personally been through watching friends' relationships break up due to infidelity. I've also seen friends' relationships that have essentially, I've recently seen friends who ended long-term relationships because they didn't want sort of the commitment of being with that person that way. The
confines of that relationship.
Yeah, but they continue to have sex, and it's completely
together.
Yeah, they're still in a sexual relationship. They were just like, you know what, this part of it was like it kind of ran its course, but we always had a really good sex life. And we want to be friends, we're friends, and we realize we're better friends than anything, but they essentially decided to be friends with benefits. And it was like, but we're now in this very different sort of plane of existence where we're starting to see people try to negotiate this and say, well, do you want to stay in a long-term relationship and have things be open? Do you want to would you rather, be in a relationship? And then I knew a couple for a very long time that were happily married to each other, happily had a regular sex life with each other, but they had an open relationship. So they were both allowed to have, boyfriends, girlfriends, relationships on the side. They were kept separate. And the negotiation was like, don't ask, don't tell. But you just, you always come home to me. And this was their understanding for 20 years. They were perfectly fine with it. They actually got to a point where they just decided they didn't want to do it anymore. They were fine with not doing that anymore.
Wow.
But that was, to me, that was a really, I remember thinking I couldn't do that. And to be honest, I struggle with this whole sort of shift and change in the idea of monogamy and what relationships mean because I am inherently a jealous person.
Yeah, well, that's why I always kind of wonder, I would think that if in a perfect world, if a couple were negotiating this, they would be negotiating it with somebody who could offer insight, like their counselor, a couples counselor. Because I think that people can, and I've just heard enough of this kind of experience with people where they think they know how they're going to feel when something like that happens. But when it actually happens, they have different sort of perspectives on it, and it can be damaging. I guess what I'm saying is that I think every couple needs to be careful about how it's great that they're communicating and negotiating, but I think that you
should have a third party.
I think
you should have a sounding board that's not the two of you to make
exactly
these kinds of decisions.
Because I know a couple that are in a polyamorous relationship.
Yeah, and that's a whole other
and so they're married and they are connected with another couple that's married, but there's a lot of cross pollination.
Right? There's a television series that comes on, I think DirecTV. It's called You, Me, Her, and it's about a married couple that essentially bring a third party into their relationship, and it complicates their relationship because the wife and the woman that they bring in, they become connected in a certain way, and then the girl and the husband become connected in a certain way. Yeah. The husband and wife kind of lose connection because they both kind of focus in on the girl, and it's kind of like how it all sort of spins. Yeah. But I remember thinking when I saw I remember seeing the ad and going, yeah, we are in a whole new headspace on some of this stuff that we're now we got sitcoms about.
Yeah. I just wonder. I definitely see the value in that. I think it's relationships are already hard, but mind treacherous ground.
But mind you, a lot of what we understand as the history of relationship has also been based on a system where we never updated sort of antiquated notions that were based on women being property.
Yeah, right.
At one
exactly.
point, where where a lot of relationships up until a certain point in history weren't even equal exchanges of power and, and loving exchange. It was like, I own you, I keep you, your dad gave you to me. Or it's
a business relationship.
Our families marry these people off because it's better for us as a collective. Things like that. So we really have never got. This is probably the first point in our collective history in a long time that we've actually starting to pull back the veil on what relationship means.
Yeah.
And not just by the narrow definition that we've always given it, which is in a lot of ways has been dictated by like social norms, law, and religion. So we're in a new space.
Yeah, it really it's very interesting. It's an interesting time, and it's going to be interesting to see if marriage survives, and its kind of current.
Honestly, I think
state.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's a very interesting thing to sort of be watching in the next like 50 to 100 years, how it's going to look or how it sort of morphs out of what it is now. I mean, we're seeing less and less people actively getting married. We're seeing still that the traditional structures of marriage are still resulting, at least in the United States, in a 50% divorce rate.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and even watching how people renegotiate and change the dynamic on how they engage when you have marriage and monogamous relationships that result in families and children, and how you renegotiate around those things. I think we're going to see a lot of change, especially based on this new generation coming up under us with far more widespread ideas of identity and gender and sexuality and things. Yes. I mean, it's going to be so much different.
Yeah. So, and I think I know we're getting a little off, but I see that you can look at it in a lot of ways, which is you can be threatened by it, or you can also see it in a way that it enriches our lives. As relationships get more or less defined, it could be very enriching.
Yeah, I think.
How do you like that? I'm throwing that out as a butterfly.
I think it's going to be interesting.
Can you see the butterfly floating around the room? I love it. Hopeful.
All right. So number 7 on this list is powering through painful sex. And we just talked about that. Don't do that. There's no need to be for the sake of the greater good or for your partner or to keep the peace or any other reason. You should not be having painful sex. Sex should not be painful. And if it is, please, please, please go seek out professional help.
That's right. There's it's not normal. I think we've talked about this again and again. And pain with sex is not normal. It's not like something. It's not Eve's curse. It is. Sex should be pleasurable. It should be fun. It should not be painful. If it is, there's a reason for it. And most of the time, we can come to an understanding of what it is and treat it and manage it. And so you can get back, hopefully, to having a satisfying, comfortable, fun sexual relationship.
Absolutely.
And the worst thing you can do is power through it, because the more we have our reptile brains, and then we have our Homo sapien brains, right? The reptile brain is what makes you start sweating when you go to the doctor's office, even though you think you're all relaxed.
Right.
It's the fight or flight kind of.
Yeah, it's like when they go, I'm going to take your blood pressure because you just got here, and then your blood pressure is like 150/95, and they're like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I'm in the doctor's office.
Yeah, I'm having a great time. I enjoy it, but really my reptile brain wants me to get my butt out of here and start running.
Right.
And then we have our the higher thought processes to try to control it. But if you have pain long enough with sex, your body and your mind, your essence will start to expect pain, and then it becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've absolutely discussed that before. That your body will really react as though pain is approaching, and then it'll make it even more painful or difficult or impossible to have sex. Right.
We are pleasure-seeking organisms, and our bodies will work very actively to reject something that's painful.
Absolutely.
And so you got to intervene. You got to break that cycle.
I think that's a very smart thing to say. So number 8 on this list is not prioritizing intimacy, even if it means scheduling sex, which you hit the nail right on the head on. So, and that's true.
I didn't hit that nail. Those are sex therapists that are saying it.
Okay, well,
so I don't want to
you get to
carry the burden.
Well, you get to take credit for it because you're the person that put it out.
But it just sounds so boring. If somebody wants to say, if somebody's going to say something boring, I don't want it to be me.
Oh, well.
I want to just say, okay, I'm just the messenger.
Not boring. That's important.
It's important, but everybody groans when you say that. You gotta use it or lose it. You gotta keep it as a part of your life, and so put it on the schedule, and you can see everybody just slump. I'm slumping right now.
Here's the thing: intimacy is. I feel like there's a spectrum for intimacy, just like there's a spectrum for desire. So when you're talking about prioritizing intimacy, a lot of what happens when you're in a long-term relationship and when you're in a relationship where you have children or other things that impact your relationship, you start losing what I like to call the sort of connective tissue of your sex life, and then your sex goes away. So you stop doing things like kissing each other goodbye in the morning, or just stopping for a hug because you want to have a hug, or holding that hug for like a minute instead of like 10 seconds. Or, holding hands when you're just sitting around watching TV, or watching TV at two separate ends of the couch instead of in each other's lap like you used to do. That's the connective tissue. That's intimacy right there. When you look up and you realize you used to always hold your spouse's hand when they drove the car in town, and now you don't. He's in the 10 and the 2 position on the steering wheel. When he doesn't need to be.
2 position.
Right. Yeah, when you drive the 10 and the 2.
I know what you're saying.
But like,
it's funny.
Yeah, but that's a loss of something.
Honey, you're being real safe. I really appreciate your technique. But I'm not feeling connected.
Yeah, like what's going on? Yeah, like but that's a real thing. Like it's a simple thing, but it's a real thing. And that's the thing we take for granted first. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it kind of adds up, and then you're not having sex anymore, and you start realizing that not only you're not having sex anymore, you're not doing anything anymore. That makes you feel like you're a part of a committed relationship, like whatever. And it's not even. I hear people arguing like the things you did to get them is the things you have to do to keep them. Yeah, I get that, and that's valid. But I'm talking about the things that set off the happy part of your brain that makes you feel like you ate
all those
chocolates.
we're just souls floating around in neurotransmitters and hormones, Twila.
Right, and the things that stimulate those, and the things that give you the warm, fuzzy feeling, the things that make you feel like this is my person, you have to keep doing that. You have to remember to keep doing that.
That's right.
And so, yes, scheduling sex on your calendar is important because if you're not having it, you want to get back to having it. But you have to take it a step further. It's as simple as when you walk through the kitchen and you see your person is standing at the counter reading the mail, and in your early days you would have walked past. In your really early days, you would have walked past and tapped them on the butt. In your in the middle passage, you would have walked past and just like squeezed their shoulder or rubbed their back. Go back to that. Incorporate. Like, don't be afraid to touch your partner. Don't be afraid to be engaged with your partner in a very specific way.
Do a Stormy Daniels. Just take a magazine, give him a little pat on his white.
Stop it.
Bare white.
Stop it. We are not. I'm cutting all that out. I'm talking
about
him.
God.
I refuse.
We can't have any fun anymore.
I can't talk about him. I can't do it. But please don't
give him a little spanking.
No, stop that. But don't forget that part. Like, don't forget the part that's like playful and joyful and kind and loving. That's right. That's the thing that we lose track of, and it's the thing. It's sidebar, which is weird to be talking about this, given that we're talking about sex. But I remember going to my kids' preschool and the preschool teacher telling us that they were so well behaved at school, and we were having a lot of discipline problems at home. And I was just like, what? Well, why are they being so polite here? And she very specifically was like, well, they know you're the safe space at home, that you're not leaving.
Let loose when
right. They can let loose here because it's the safe space. But out here at school, they want to be accepted. They want to be a part of the group. They want to be included. So they're going to do things that allow them to be a part of the group. The same thing happens with your relationship. Sometimes your most charming version of yourself is not the one you give to your partner. It's the one you give to strangers at the grocery store, or your work colleagues, or your business associates, or the parents at the PTA. And then you come home and the schlubby self and the irritable and tired self is what you give to your partner. Yeah. You have to be mindful of that, because they're your partner. At the end of the day, all that other stuff's going to go away, and you're going to have this one person that you're with, that you chose to be with. You want to make sure there's still something there that's connecting the two of you. So that's important.
Yep.
Okay, so number 9 on our list of 10 sex mistakes that women make in their 30s, not masturbating.
Yeah.
I'm a huge advocate for this. I tell people all the time, you don't own a vibrator? Oh, let me recommend some. Like, please go buy some. So, it's really, really important. How are you going to know what brings you pleasure, what feels good to you on any level if you don't explore your own body?
Exactly.
And I'm not just, and sometimes, and I know I make jokes about like buying vibrators all the time, but it's not just about vibrators. It's not just about your vagina and your clitoris and all. It's your body will bring you pleasure, and you have to figure out what you enjoy. You have to figure out how you like somebody to touch your breast, how you like, what what level of pressure do you like if somebody is kissing you or touching your hand? If you're like, you have to figure out where your sensitive spots are.
Yeah.
You know, so that if somebody is so if somebody's attempting to if they think they're caressing you, but really they're just tickling the crap out of you, you can tell them, that's not my thing. I don't get into that. If you don't know your body, how are you ever going to be able to have a really successful sex life with a partner? Because you can't really be fully open with them about who you are and what works for you.
That's right. And it's okay. And this is the thing, you know, there's this whole shame about our bodies. And it is okay to have physical pleasure. It's okay to feel good.
It's encouraged.
And we got to it's encouraged. It's good for our health.
Yep.
It's good for our physical health, our mental health. And what you're saying, I'm going to put words in your mouth, but this is what I'm hearing, is that, you know, get to know your body, get to know what feels good.
Yeah.
You keep going, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But many of us have grown up historically feeling shame regarding our bodies.
Absolutely. We have there's a podcast we're working on with a fantastic woman, and we were recording recently, and she referred to a part of her body as her stomach as her bell. And I was like, and she says it super lovingly. She's like, I love my bell, and I bought this swimsuit so you could see my bell. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And she's like, what's your belly? She's like, but we don't talk about it. Women don't talk about their bellies with any kind of love or support or acceptance.
Bell, I love that.
Yeah,
That's
so
beautiful.
she calls it her bell. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, just the second she said it, I was like, I'm gonna start saying that.
Yeah.
And it's that idea of like, if you know your body and you know what makes you feel comfortable about your body,
Yeah.
if you even understand what you're confident in, what you're not confident in your body, it helps steer and direct when you're with an intimate partner. If you know you're a little bit self-conscious about your stomach, then you can tell them, like, I'm a little self-conscious about that, but I love my thighs. You can touch my thighs all day.
Yeah.
You know, that's important for them to know. If they know that you take a lot of pride in your pedicure or whatever, and you love your feet, or you love the visual image of him rubbing your feet or kissing your feet, then he knows that, or she knows that. And then that's an expansion of your relationship. That's an expansion of your pleasure, because now somebody knows something about you that allows them to be more connected to you. They know that that's your go-to. They know that's something that makes you feel sexy. Then you'll relax. You'll be more comfortable. And then here's the thing. The more comfortable you get, the more you're able to be available for yourself and your partner. So now if you're comfortable, you're not all in your head, then you can ask your partner and be more engaged and ask them, like, what feels good to you? Does this feel good to you? What is it that you like me to do? And then you're having an equal exchange.
That's right.
And then you're both enjoying your sex lives more. Really
that is, I love this. This is like the bonobo life, right?
What is the bonobo life?
Don't you want to live the bonobo?
I don't know what you're talking
We've talked about bonobos versus chimps. How gross chimps are. You know, chimps are nasty. I'm sorry for people who really love chimps out there, but
I know you're going to get emails. I'm not getting them.
Well, oh my Lord! If there's anybody that feels, chimps are, and they're like people.
Amazed.
They're like humans. They murder each other. They kill children. It's just the worst things. They rape. The whole thing. Bonobos are also primates, but they are matriarchal.
Yes, they are.
Right.
Of course they are.
So they engage. And they handle everything like conflict. They handle by touching, and they have a lot. They're always having sex. Like. The females are having sex with the females, and males, it's all over the place. It's probably, I'm sure a lot of people think that sounds like Sodom and Gomorrah, right? But anyway, it's not.
Civilized.
They are not violent. They don't rape each other. Where am I going with this? I'm just saying, live the bonobo life. I want to live the bonobo life, which is a life where people are loving and caring and work out their conflicts in a non-violent way.
Okay.
And and bonobos know their bodies. I'll tell you that. They know what they like.
Right.
And in their own bonobo way, they communicate it.
I have no idea where he's going with this, but we'll go with it. Okay, don't do that. We're not doing that.
That's what he said. He's saying, I like that. And she's
okay, where are you going?
I don't know. I'm saying get to know your life.
Get to know
your body.
Get to know your body.
Live the bonobo life.
Oh, okay. So, number 10 on this list of the 10 sex mistakes women make in their 30s is comparing your sex life to your close friends' sex lives. Do not do this. This is a mistake. You want to know why? Because 90% of the time,
they're not telling you the truth.
Yeah. Just, come on. Who's going to tell you, I haven't had sex with my husband in a year? Nobody's going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you that. Well, mostly because they're embarrassed or ashamed of it. They're not going to tell you that. Right. And some people are like me. I'll tell you perfectly honestly. I tend to be an open book With my friends, I'm full open book because I figure we should share information and we know things about each other. But even we know that there are limits to what we understand and what's going on with us and what's going on with you. And the thing is, you should only be measuring your sex life off of you and the person that you're with and whether it's working for you or not. If something about it's not working, then do something to fix it. If it's working, and listen, if you only have sex once a month and once a month is good on you,
are happy with
and that Sunday is the best Sunday ever, and then it fortifies you for 30 days, girl, then you're winning. You're living your best life. If you're having sex every day, then that's great. If you're having sex every anniversary, then that's great. If it works for you and it's not a problem.
We don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
Right. And if whatever's going on behind closed doors is working for you and your partner and it's not a problem and you are both happy and fulfilled and satisfied with what's going on, aces. Good for you. If not, then you should be trying to do your best because you only get one life. Don't spend any part of that life in a situation or marking time when you could be happier. Figure out how to get yourself happier. But don't look at other people. Never compare the grass. Grass is never greener. It's just never greener on the other side. And I don't care who you are. I mean, perfect example. We would have looked at, all of us sort of pop culture people had looked at Jay-Z and Beyonce and thought they're everything. They're worth $1 billion. And they're both, beautiful people and they're rich and they flit all over the globe and they have all of these accolades and they have this love with each other. And then she put out Lemonade. And you're like, holy crap, how stupid do you have to be to cheat on Beyonce? Apparently really stupid because he did many times.
With didn't she make some comment? You see, I know a little bit about this.
You're very on the fringe of this.
But what was the comment about someone with a good hair or whatever?
Becky with the good hair.
Is that who she's talking about?
That was probably like the most infamous that she was talking about. But apparently he had done it more than one time. That this was years of her publicly,
putting on the show.
Yeah, publicly being like, this is my husband. I'm so lucky. We're so lucky to have each other. And then privately, she was essentially, really and truly being, taken advantage of and hurting her relationship by somebody that wasn't being respectful of her relationship.
And they've healed things up, haven't they?
Well, yeah, it's super interestingly, she put out an album that basically told her experience from her side, and then he put out an album that told his perspective from his side, but not in the, I'm making excuses kind of way, in a, I almost ruined my family kind of way, and it made me have to turn into a grown-up. I had to realize what I was doing to somebody. And yeah, they've managed to, which is funny because they've managed to patch it up, and now we're all still mad at them. So they're going on tour, and I'm like, I don't want to go. I don't want to see him. I'm mad at him. It's super dumb, but that's a perfect example. Whatever you see on the surface is not whatever's going on. It's only what you see. It's the perception. It's what they put out there, and your perception is your reality, not theirs.
That's right.
What happens when they close the door and they draw their shades is what happens with their lives, and you're never actually going to know all of that unless you become a part of some sort of polyamorous situation with them. So don't compare your life to somebody else's. Just be okay with your life. Figure it, and if you're not, do things to work on and build up and improve and sustain your life. Don't ever look at anybody else as the playbook. Don't do that. You can take helpful guidance from that, or you could have aspirations based on things you see, but you have to remember that real people go through real things, and everybody's a real person at the end of the day. So you shouldn't be using that as the measure.
Wow. Da, 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 da. You remember this song? Da, da, da.
Okay, you
when
can't.
you get
no more.
behind closed doors.
You can't sing more than 10 seconds or I have to pay. So don't.
And you let
Stop! I'm serious.
That was like a second.
No, it wasn't. It was like 7. You can't do that. I have no money.
We're just talking about the. Talking about, remember the old Charlie Rich song? Remember
when we get behind closed doors. I'll put it in the syllabus. I really will put it in the syllabus.
That song is just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
The Silver Fox.
Yeah, but okay, so those are our 10.
All right, well, those were good conversation.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. We talked, and basically, I think the take-home message.
Yeah.
Let's live the bonobo life. You've been listening to the GynoCast.
I know that was coming.
Thank you for listening. We will see you next time.
Yeah, go to the Facebook page.
Yeah, if you have things you want to talk about, if there are subjects you want us to cover, let us know.
Yeah, go to Facebook, type in the GynoCast, and you can like the page. You can also, you have to join the group, so you have to request to be a member, and we will vet you. It's a closed group. We talk about things like this and other sometimes sensitive topics, and we want to do that in a really respectful space where people can be supported. So ask to join the group. We will vet you. We'll let you in, and then you can join the conversations. Don't forget, we also have a website, matriarchdm.com. The GynoCast has a show page there. You can listen to past episodes. You can get bonus material like the syllabus information, and you can email our show. Email hello@matriarchdm.com, and you can you can interact with us and give us your questions, suggestions, let us know what you think about the show and all the other good things.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Thank you so
See
much.
you soon. Thank you, Twila Dang.